Good afternoon and welcome to VU Talk Show. I'm Anne-Marie Angebrand and I have a special guest with me here today, Dr. Fiona McDonald. Fiona is a research fellow with our Institute of Sustainable Industries and Livable Cities, and she does a lot of work with young people. So welcome, Fiona.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks for the opportunity.
That's all right. First of all, I know you recently got a big grant. Can you tell us about that grant and what kind of research you'll be doing with that grant?
Okay. At this stage it's an application, so I haven't necessarily received the grant, but I'm certainly working on that basis that it's a project that's worth pursuing in a number of ways. So this grant is with the Australian Research Council, and it's looking at how children develop a sense of what's possible for themselves educationally and also in terms of work. So we've all heard that story of the teacher that made a difference in my life or the adult that made a difference in my life, and reflecting back on that as an adult about how that actually changed your educational sort of work trajectory. So this project is actually trying to look at how that happens in the primary school years. So what I'm looking to do is follow children from grade 3 through to grade 5 and interview them 4 or 5 times a year. Also interviewing their parents and their teachers, trying to get a sense of who's influencing, how they influence, and how children come to some sense of what they might want to do. And certainly the research suggests that children are making decisions at that age group, and waiting for sort of career possibilities and learning through secondary schools is almost too late. So it's trying to sort of capture that. And the aim of the research is to look at that and see if we understand how that happens, how do we capture that and actually replicate that for other children so that all children have that opportunity to develop a sense that's something that might be slightly different from what they know, but that might be a good career trajectory for them to take.
Okay, and I know that this all kind of relates to social justice.
Yep.
What is a social justice approach, and why is that important to look through that kind of lens?
Okay, so social justice is really looking at trying to make sure that all individuals, but certainly in my research, children and young people, all have the same opportunity to reach their potential. So looking at how our education systems function, looking at how our family support systems work, looking at the opportunities for children in different environments, and trying to create a space where all children have the opportunity. Now that doesn't mean to say that they're all going to achieve what they want to, but a social justice approach is trying to create the space where they can.
Okay, and why is it important to study this particular age group, inequalities at that age? Why is there some kind of a focus on that age group that maybe translates down the track when they're adults, if we start studying them when they're younger?
Yeah, well I think there's a lot of research that's been done with teenagers and adolescents in terms of what might be possible for them in their futures, and certainly there's a lot of research that's also done in early childhood from sort of 0 to 8 in terms of supporting learning, language and experiences, but that sort of 8 to 12 age group, which is really the upper end of primary school, hasn't received an awful lot of focus in terms of policy and government support to actually recognise that this age group of children are actually thinking about their futures. They're thinking about moving outside their family and developing their sense of independence. They're thinking about what might be possible. They're looking at their peer groups and deciding where do I see myself fitting in that, and what can I see myself doing. And it's kind of been described as this in-between or the tween age, and that's the consumer media phrase generally, but it really does kind of recognise that these kids are in between early childhood, they're in between teenage and adolescence, but there's an awful lot going on for them culturally and socially, and as I said, freedom and looking for independence. So understanding how that happens will certainly help us, I think, understand how children and young people do make decisions and move into secondary schools and then tertiary or TAFE or apprenticeships in the future. All
right. What about other projects that you've got going on at the moment? Are you working in other areas, related areas, or totally different things?
I would describe them as all being related. So my research is really focused on children and young people's experiences. So I've just recently completed a project looking at breakfast clubs in Victorian primary schools, and that was a 3-year project looking at how the Victorian government's provision of breakfast in the most disadvantaged primary schools might make a difference for those children. So again, sort of looking at the social justice approach. So that involved surveys, but also going into schools and having a look at what's happening for children and young people. So I see that as very related. I'm also doing a project with the emergency services, looking at how they engage with young people in communities and what skills and capabilities young people might bring to the emergency services in terms of building resilience in communities around natural disasters. And I'm also working on a project looking at children and young people coming out of the youth justice system and how they might re-engage in education. So whilst they're kind of quite diverse, the focus of all of them is really looking at the experiences of children and young people, and that would be where I see my strengths as a researcher coming through.
Wow, when do you sleep?
My children would say not very often.
And how does this relate to Victoria University? Is there some connection that Victoria University maybe has with this kind of research?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Victoria University really does look at social justice and equality and opportunities for all young people in terms of their approach and their strategic plan. Victoria University, as we know, also has a significant focus on the west of Victoria and western suburbs. So whilst my research is across the state, there are opportunities, and there certainly has been through the Breakfast Club, to focus on particular local government areas or areas of disadvantage that build into that sort of Victoria University's engagement with the West, but definitely in terms of their approach to enabling all children and young people to have an opportunity for education and certainly moving through to tertiary. So yeah, I think there's some really strong links between the plan and the work that I do.
So it's great to see that this kind of research, which is very sort of strongly based in Melbourne and also, you know, with everyday kind of practical research, is making a difference to not only Victoria University but also to the communities that it serves. So thank you very much, Fiona, for being here today and explaining to everyone about your research. It's been a real pleasure, so thank you for joining VU Talk Show, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
And I thought, is it the real number one or the number one that started, which was number 3?